Mr. Awad, what would you say is President al-Sisi, is he a more reliable ally in combating Islamist terror than a Brotherhood-led government would be?
On that narrow question of reliability, to rely on a member of the Egyptian military over a member of the Muslim Brotherhood to combat terrorists, the short answer is yes. There was a question asked earlier about whether or not the Muslim Brotherhood is compatible with democracy. That question can be debated, but I believe they're wholly incompatible with liberal democracy. Not really sure this is a question that's necessarily up for debate. The Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood, that is. On the question of whether or not they're a foreign terrorist organization, I don't necessarily see evidence that the entire organization is a terrorist organization. That does not make them pacifists. They have problematic views. They have proven themselves to be...
They support groups like Hamas, though.
They do support groups like Hamas. However, we're talking about material or financial support. The extent of that has to be investigated to be able to make a designation that every member of the
also provide the intellectual contours for really rigid political Islamism. And one of the things I appreciated with President al-Sisi, and again, I think I agree with you guys on the problems with the civil society, was that he gave a speech in front of a lot of clerics in 2015 and just made the point that he's a devout Muslim, but you can't have the faith used to be antagonistic to every single person in the world who disagrees with that. I would imagine that that view would be rejected by the hierarchy of the Brotherhood, correct?
That is true. And let me clarify, there is increasing evidence that one faction inside the Muslim Brotherhood has engaged in violence since January of 2014, at least. Some of their members have engaged and do engage in violence. The question here is not, again, whether the Muslim Brotherhood is a pacifist organization or a problematic one. It is. It is incompatible with liberal democracy, and its views are regressive. But for the United States, when designating a foreign terrorist organization, if we want to take a step like that, perhaps we should look at the specific individuals or the specific faction that's actively engaging in these things, because there are many members of the Muslim Brotherhood who may hold regressive views, like members of white supremacist groups here in the United States, that we wouldn't necessarily designate as terrorists. But again, the lack of designating as terrorists does not mean then that the organization is a good organization or compatible with liberal democracy.
Well, I thank the gentleman for his comments. I would just say I think that what is kind of at the foundation of society, are there pockets where you could actually have more liberal views about the proper role of government? And my fear is that the default is basically the Brotherhood and political Islam, and that's where the majority, or at least a plurality of the folks are. But I agree, it's tough to figure that out if there's not open channels. But I appreciate the testimony, and I yield back.
Thank you, Congressman DeSantis. And now we'll conclude with our guest, Congressman Dana.